All right, everyone, welcome to our deep dive this week. We're going to boldly go where we haven't really gone before.
Into the Trekverse.
Well, kind of. We're actually looking at this piece that uses Star Trek, and I'm talking the classic series here, as a jumping off point to talk about some pretty big ideas.
Yeah, utopia, social change, the kind of stuff you'd expect when you're talking about a future where humanity has moved beyond things like money and war.
Exactly. So it's not just for diehard Trekkies.
Definitely not. This piece really gets you thinking, even if you've never seen an episode of Star Trek in your life, which I kind of doubt.
This author really dives deep into their own history with Star Trek, and it's actually kind of sweet. They talk about how even when they were a kid, they were drawn to those big questions the show asks us to think about.
Like, what does it really mean to be human? Are we doomed to repeat the same mistakes?
Right. Even back then, they could see past the sometimes cheesy special effects.
Hey, you got to give them a break. It was the 60s.
Totally. But you know that episode with the two groups of aliens? Identical except for their skin color?
Oh, you mean the one where they're constantly at each other's throats over something so trivial?
Exactly. Even as a kid, it made me think, are we really that different from each other? I mean, how often do we let these small, insignificant things divide us?
Which is exactly why Star Trek is so brilliant, right? It uses fiction to hold up a mirror to ourselves. It forces us to ask these tough questions in a way that feels safe, engaging, even entertaining.
Right. It's like sneaking in a little social commentary with your phasers and warp speed.
Exactly. And the author picks up on this. They argue that Star Trek's real power lies in its ability to tackle these complex social issues. But it goes beyond just, pointing out problems. This author is truly captivated by Star Trek's vision of the future.
You mean the whole utopian society thing?
Exactly. A future without poverty, without hunger, a future where everyone has the chance to explore their potential, to learn, to contribute to something bigger than themselves.
And to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Well, of course, that too. But seriously, the author is clearly so drawn to that vision of the future that they even say, well, how do they put it?
Oh, they straight up say they'd trade their current life to be out there exploring the galaxy on the Enterprise.
Yep, that's our author. And that actually leads into the real heart of their argument, which is, well, it's their critique of capitalism.
Go.
They don't mince words. They basically say, flat out, that there is no happiness in capitalism.
Whoa, no, that's a bold statement. Did they back that up?
Oh, yeah. They see capitalism as being totally at odds with the utopia that Star Trek presents. I mean, think about it. In Star Trek, they've got replicators, right? Which
Yeah.
basically eliminates scarcity.
So there's no need for money, no more working just to survive.
Exactly. People aren't driven by profit or by this constant need to acquire more stuff. They're driven by a desire to better themselves, to explore, to learn. And that's what the author finds so compelling.
It definitely makes you stop and think. I mean, what would it take to actually create that kind of world? What would we have to overcome to get to a point where those Star Trek ideals became our reality?
And it's interesting, right? Because the author doesn't just throw this out there as like a pipe dream. They bring in some real-world inspiration, too.
Oh, like
They talk about Thomas Sankara, and they even quote him.
Sankara. Remind me.
He was this revolutionary figure, really big on social justice, fought against global inequality, super critical of the legacy of colonialism. That guy was passionate.
So how does he tie into all of this?
He believed in a future where everyone's basic needs are met. A future where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential. Sound familiar?
It does sound a lot like the kind of future they're imagining in Star Trek.
Exactly. And the author sees a direct connection between Sankara's vision and what Star Trek is trying to say. They even quote Sankara saying, and this is powerful, we must dare to invent the future.
Wow, I got chills. We must dare to invent the future.
I love that. Right. It's this call to action. It's a reminder that we're not just along for the ride. We actually have the power to shape our own destiny. Just like the characters in Star Trek.
So it's not just about escaping into a fantasy world.
No way. It's about recognizing the potential for something better and then actually working towards it.
So where does that leave us? What are we supposed to take away from all of this?
Well, I think the author wants us to walk away with a sense of hope, but also with a call to action. If we want a future that reflects the best of what Star Trek represents, the equality, the justice, the pursuit of knowledge, then we have to fight for it.
It makes you think, what can we do in our own lives right now to push for those ideals?
Exactly. What would it take to start prioritizing things like education and exploration over profit and power?
Wow, this deep dive has given me a lot to think about. And you know what? I'm actually feeling kind of optimistic.
Me too. That's the power of Star Trek, right? It reminds us that even though it's fiction, those ideals, the equality, the justice, the pursuit of knowledge, they are worth striving for in the real world.
So next time you're watching Captain Kirk and Spock, just remember, it's not just a show. It's a vision of what we could achieve if we're bold enough to imagine it and brave enough to fight for it. Thanks for joining us on this trek through utopia. Until next time.
Live long and prosper.